G'day, he's going. I'll just mute the telly. Right, what's been happening with you guys? Oh, get myself comfortable. Whew. There's a lot happening in the world, eh? Lots of stuff I find very interesting. Now, I've got an apology to make, which I've gone in and fixed this morning. The last video I uploaded about the Wilmingdale conglomerates, I forgot to mention that was all about a tsunami event. So I've gone back and I've edited the actual title of that, and it just says Wilmingdale conglomerates evidence of tsunami event, ? Because I say what I was pointing out with that video was just all the things that would match up with a tsunami hitting, and then as the waves go back, dragging material back, and then they settle out. Anyway, that was just, wanted to clear that one up. My bad. Yeah, and watching the news, interesting stuff. All you guys that were down in Victoria, did you see that bright comet coming in and burning up? That was pretty good. Lots and lots of videos out there about that. G'day, Ben. How you going? Yeah, I'm going pretty good. Yeah, I say lots of interesting stuff, and lots of stuff that's it's not good. Not good for anyone. But again, it's all stuff that's out of our individual control. We've just got to wait and see what happens. I've been watching all the live earthquake tremors that are happening around the world, and watching volcano movements and what's happening. Yeah, a time of activity. Things are changing. What have you been doing, Ben? I've been burying my head in study, doing research on different things. Yeah, interesting how some of these volcanoes that are erupting are ones that are coming up from beneath the ocean. They're actually coming up and starting to form land on top, brand new land. And just where these are happening. It's not just one or two spots, isolated spots. It's starting to happen all around the world. Yeah. And I say I've been watching some of these videos on Nostradamus and what's the woman's name? Baba Vanga. And they all basically talk about parts of different continents going under the ocean and new land rising from the ocean. I'm just trying to see if I can find a correlation between all the events that are happening in the world with earthquakes and volcanoes starting to become active again, and whether or not that's going to correlate to some of these predictions that we're told. And some of it does actually match up fairly well. Trove, what a great spot to do research. Oh, love it. That's another thing. Something I've noticed of late is people no longer read books. Even to the point where they don't buy magazines and read magazines. People do not actually hold reading material in their hands and read anymore. And it's sort of, nobody's noticed it. I have. Like everywhere you go, you don't see people sitting reading a newspaper anymore. Just another strange thing. I mean, the electronic world, we rely on it so heavily. But when you look at what's happening in the world today, with the activity on the sun, where it's actually having these big coronal bursts and these magnetic pulses, or these energy pulses are coming out of the sun, and they're affecting, well, they believe they're affecting the magnetic fields in the earth. It's good to have convenience with electronics, but if you come too dependent on it and all of a sudden it's not there, then it's a big problem, because your dependency is cut. and then you've got to try and move on without that, what you've been depending on. Does that make sense? Anyway, yes, starting to get warm. Might be time to start thinking about going and doing some things again. Damn cold weather, it knocks me around with the pain. I'll tell you something, Ben. Do you remember the video I did? It was about gold at Dubbo. That all came about, and the reason I actually went there to have a look is I was reading old books, and some of the names of creeks that I read in this book don't exist today. The name of the creek that I actually went to was different when this book was written, but because I was reading that book and I actually knew what the book was about in the general area, I started going back through records to find where the creek that was named in the book, where that is today, and found out that there was a name change. Now that happens an awful lot with all the creeks that had names back in the early days. They often got changed to other names to make them easy to categorize and put into records. And a really good example of that one is when we talk about whether or not we've got right to go onto Crown lands. And this is where you need to really do your research on the areas you go. So back in the beginnings of recording history here in Australia, if an area contained a creek and the last name, like the last part of the creek was ponds or chain of ponds or swamp, it wasn't classified as a creek. So quite often the land that has these old creeks on it, it's not actually Crown land. It is private property because of a name. That's the only difference. So when they started changing the names of, chain of ponds is a great one, and ponds, what happened was the creek actually got rezoned, and the creek itself became Crown land, and the land either side of it was still privately owned. So that's just an example of how a name of a creek will change over time, and then it's referred to as a different name. G'day, Master. What are my thoughts on unidentified aerial phenomena? Just curious, as we all are. Yeah, hey, I fully believe that there are other beings out there that come and visit here. Way too much evidence out there to say you can't just dismiss it. Too many things out there that says it's real. So my thoughts on it, 100% believe it. And I say it's just a sad thing that if somebody actually does witness something like that, they have a fear, all right? They fear that if they speak up about it, they're going to get torn down because that fear is correct. People will tear them down because they're talking about something that to other people should not be. It doesn't fit with their reality. So if somebody says, I saw a light that moved across the sky, stopped, and then changed direction, go the other way, people will automatically fear that, and they will tear that person down because they don't like what they're saying. They fear it. That's my thoughts. Anyway, moving on. Hope that answers your question, Master. Yeah, the days are getting longer. No worries, bud. That's just my personal opinion. Doesn't make it right or wrong. It was amazing. It had so much detail about family townships that don't exist. Yeah, and that's the good thing with Trove. It actually talks not about just the events, but it talks about the people and what was happening in the area at the time that article was written. And again, the dangers of technology. And again, this is a really important thing. What the actual word you type into the search bar will determine the answer you get. AI can only work with the information that people have put in. Now, if you look at what's on the World Wide Web, a lot of it is disinformation. So AI doesn't discriminate between what's correct and what isn't. So if you actually type something in and you ask AI to answer it, it's going to get it wrong 40% of the time. Remember that. At the moment, AI gets it wrong 40% of the time. It's more wrong than right. So be very careful what you type in. And look at the answers carefully. Don't just take the first answer as the right one. Keep researching. Keep looking in different areas to get different information. A really good example, AI. If you type in what's a good pizza topping, it will actually tell you a glue is a good pizza topping. Yeah, it's crazy. I say, can't go past books. I've got a good book to show you. I had this book out on loan. We are Wild Colonial Boys. Australian history. But written in a format that is enjoyable to read. It's one of those things, once you start reading, it's very hard to put that down because you just want to hear what happened. And there's a lot of truth in this that, again, I'm going to use a bushranger analogy and put it in present day today. So in Australia, there was a lot of bushrangers. You go back 150 years. Bushrangers were people of opportunity. So that meant they used to hang out on known routes between travel and A and B. They'd come, there'd be a wagon come along, or a coach would come along. They'd jump it and steal valuables and goods and whatever else they wanted off it. So they were stealing from travellers on the road. Now, let's move forward to today. We still have bushrangers today. It's just that they're not called bushrangers. They are called mobile speed cameras. Again, these guys go out, they set themselves up at the right spots where, it's opportunistic. At the start of an overtaking lane where you speed up, they're naturally going to sit there because they're naturally going to get people that are actually speeding up. They don't have to go over the speed limit by much to get a ticket. That's called opportunistic. And that's what they do. They're opportunistic. They set up where they know you're going to speed. Bottoms of hills. Blind corners where it's not a sharp corner, but a nice sweeping corner. And I say it's funny because back in 150 years ago, if you caught a bushranger, they were generally hung from the nearest tree. Today, the government pays them to actually bushrange, to steal from travellers on the road. So that's an example of when you read books and you compare what happened in the old days to today, how things changed. Creek names, old creek names changed to new creek names. What else? What else do you want to talk about? I tell you, I've been doing lots of research on granite, hey? All the different types, what minerals are in what granites to tell you what was happening in the ground. And I say that visit to Kurawatha, where I looked at the organ piping in the rock from the rapid cooling of the basalt lava that it was on the ground. Well, lava that runs on the ground is called basalt. But yeah, just those organ piping formations that happen when that lava rapidly cools on the surface. And I say, there's something that keeps rattling around in my head. If this stuff is only formed, if organ pipe only forms when it cools on the surface, why is there sedimentary rock sitting on top of it? Because that would mean something went over the top of the surface. And sedimentary rocks you normally associate with water. So, yeah, I'm still trying to get my head around that one. I've been down to Victoria once, man. Sorry, I lie. Twice. I've been down to Victoria twice. First time was to go and see Chris. Second time was for the get-together that Victor arranged. Yeah. Might get there again. I've still got this sailing boat that I'm working on to get ready to put on the ocean and start sailing. I'm looking forward to that part of my life. It's something to keep looking forward to. Golgong, yeah. They're all deep leads. That's all. Most of the stuff that they got gold from, all the gold they got gold from at Golgong, that's a mouthful, was all alluvium. It was all in alluvial deposits. All right. So the other nickname that Golgong had was the octopus, the golden octopus. And the reason they said it was the golden octopus is because you had a hill, and you had all the arms running off the hill, and all those different arms that run in all different directions all had alluvium in it. Volcanic eruption, lava came out, whoop, and it went down, and it covered over all those streams and capped them off, trapping all the gold and the gravels in it. And then later on at Golgong, they went in, they found it, and they actually went in and they tunneled along all the old streams. So it's not just Golgong. Parkes is the same. West Wyalong is the same sort of thing. They're all deep leads. North Parkes is different. It's an actual deposit that's actually in the ground. But yeah, that's what Golgong is. It's deep leads. And you get a lot of deep lead mining down in Victoria too. There's lots of deep leads down there. I say that whole east coast of Australia, it was very, very a volcanic actively region at one point. Going back to some of these prophecy, mate, sharing knowledge. I'm so passionate about it. I don't see the point in having knowledge and not sharing it. It just does not make sense. It's wasted. If you gather knowledge and you don't pass that forward, what was the point in obtaining it? Not for personal benefit. It doesn't do me, it doesn't do anybody else good to have knowledge and not share it. I don't get it. But anyway, yeah, no, mate, I love sharing stuff. Mate, no thanks needed. I just say I love doing this stuff. Anyway, going back to what I was saying, prophecies, they talk about land going beneath the oceans and new land rising. Now, I put forward the theory that, or not the theory, it's my belief that if that was to happen, I'm not saying it's going to, but if you follow that path and you want to sort of find a realistic answer to it, and you look at the geological processes that actually form land, they're volcanic. So if you look at the amount of volcanoes that are around, so if you've got a list of volcanoes that are that big, 25% of those volcanoes, that one, they're the ones you can see. 75% of them are under the oceans. You cannot see 3/4 of the world's volcanoes. They're underwater. Again, I commented on a video and I said, if you think about volcanoes, think of a glass of water, and then you fill the glass full of water and you drop a little stone in it. Well, that stone's going to displace water, so there'll be water that actually flows out. So that's water that's rising. If you've got multiple volcanoes that are under the ocean that all start erupting and bringing new material out from in the crust and putting it on top, the water level has to go up. It can't go anywhere else. If it goes down, it only turns to gas, it goes to steam, it goes up in the air, and what happens? It cools down, it falls back as rain. Water will actually go up. You can't avoid it. It has to go up. If you've got lots of volcanic activity and it's becoming more active at the moment, like there's a lot more activity going on, there is water that is trapped in the Earth's crust. Now, if you heat up anything that's got water in it, water will escape. But it only can escape to the air. It can't go any further. It cools and it falls as rain. If you look at all the events that are happening on the news with massive floods in America, massive floods in China, massive floods in Europe, it's just extra water. You heat anything up, the water will go from a liquid to a gas. But then it's got to come back. And I just said, underneath the ocean, we are talking about volcanoes that we know of. There are between, and this is only an estimate because we don't actually know how many are under the oceans, we estimate there is between 40 and 60,000 volcanoes, active volcanoes underneath the oceans. That's a lot. I might be sailing down around Tassie one day. I reckon, Ben, yeah. I reckon, yeah, it would. I say you look at the process of how when volcanoes come up to the water's surface and then they continue erupting, but it's starting to interact with water. That molten rock that was under the ground, the only water it could react with was gas, was steam. Once it hits the top, well, then you've actually got rain and that falls on it. Now, any rain that falls anywhere in the world today is acidic, and it starts to break down basalt. It starts that whole earth building process, starts breaking it down. As soon as it starts chewing the different minerals down and breaking them down, that's when plant life can actually take hold, because it's actually got some substance with minerals in it that can actually start growing in. Different processes. Salt water too. Salt water is different. I keep trying to figure out how to not be glancing sideways. Yeah. So you go into that process of chemical erosion, which, yeah, when it comes to land building and land creation, yeah, it's all to do with chemical erosion and how the rain actually starts to break things down. Yeah, so when I say, yeah, if you take a river rock, all right, now take two different river rocks, not just one. Take a river rock that's way up away from the water, that's been sitting in the sun, hasn't been rained on for months and months and months, right? Grab that, go down to the water, grab a river rock out of the water that is wet, saturated, it's been soaking water for a long time, have a fire going, drop both rocks in the water. The one that's been in the water is going to explode because the steam inside it can't get out quick enough, and it just explodes the rock. Another erosion process. And again, you don't have to have heat. It can be the exact opposite. It can be cold. The process of erosion with cold, they call it wedging. So moisture, and I say granite's a good one, because if you ever looked at granite formations and how they're always round, like you see granite boulders sitting on top of big things of granite, the process that actually gives it that round shape, it's chemical erosion. So the water actually goes in, say it's acidic, and depending on what's in the air, if you've got a lot of volcanic gases in the air, the rain is much more acidic, and it can start to break down the surface quickly. So when you've got chemical erosion, it attacks sharp edges. Kind of not real aggressive on round, but sharp edges, it will chew that sharp edge off really quick. And the other process with granite, particularly granite, is they call it foliating. So what that means is the outside of the granite, the crust of it, gets heated and cooled by the sun and the weather. And what that does is it actually just lifts it off in flat pieces. So you go anywhere where there's granite, and you'll actually find layers where it's just flat and pick up a big slab like a plate. That process is called exfoliating. No, that's not right either. Anyway, that's how that formation, that's how you get those flat pieces of granite. And the chemical erosion is why you get rounded boulders, because it attacks all the sharp edges and takes them off. Hey, Ed, how you going, buddy? Good to see you again. Been trying to bloody catch up, and every time I go to watch your live feed, I'm asleep or I'm somewhere else. I will get there. We need to have a good chat. Mate, I'm always doing well. Even when I'm not doing well, I'm always doing well. Just how I roll. Hey, okay, Michael, question for you. Do you believe And I say I'm going back thinking about ancient megalithic structures and wondering how they actually got certain shapes and how they worked the stone to fit together. Do you reckon they used a paste? I mean, if I take myself and try and put myself back when they were around, what was available? What could actually change and modify stone? And I say, when you mentioned ceramics, that got me thinking about that again. If sulfur was abundant, I mean that we know sulfur, if you actually dilute it, you get sulfuric acid. If you diluted that down and then you heated it and started reducing the moisture content in it and bring it down to a really concentrated paste, and then you slap that on a rock and then push another rock up against it so that the two faces are in the paste, do you reckon there'd be enough acidic action there to actually give you a nice tight bond? Just a theory. Always good to catch up with the family, Ed. Always. You guys, you're all family. We're all family. That's the best part about prospectors. Hearts of gold. What's been happening on the other side of the pond? You guys still getting wild weather? I reckon Australia's going to cop it here in the next few weeks, weather-wise. I laugh at this stuff. I really do. I think we all readily accept what we're told far too quickly these days. We need to start thinking again. Stop relying on technology to answer questions. We should be able to think for ourselves and work it out. I'm gonna touch on one of my pet hates. And I'll say this is just a catch up video, just to have a chat. One of my pet hates. It's the advertisement here in this country that speeding causes death. I disagree with that statement. I believe that is what you call false information, deliberate and actionable false information. So ask yourself, if you believe speeding causes deaths on the road, answer, like when you ask yourself, why does speed cause death on the road? If you agree with it, ask yourself. And then see what your answer is to yourself. Because if you don't actually know why speeding causes deaths on the road, look a little deeper. My belief, no, it's not speeding that causes deaths on the road. It's lack of knowledge, lack of thinking that causes deaths, not speed. If speed caused death on the road, like if speed was a direct consequence, start again. If death was a direct consequence of speeding, then we wouldn't have racing car drivers. We wouldn't have guys that race bikes. We wouldn't have aeroplanes. We wouldn't have jet fighters. These things all travel at way faster speeds, but they don't all die. So you can't say speed is the cause of death. It's just a consequence that may be related to that death. If you choose to speed, so Ben, I think that's right too. Sound and vibrations are everywhere in the world. So if you can, I say it's something that they probably knew about, we've probably forgotten about it. Anyway, going back, you can't. I think it's foolish to say speed kills because it's not. You're only looking at a tiny little bit of information that is that big. Okay, if you've got a flat straight area that's got no trees, no fences, no nothing. Let's say you're on a salt plain where they do all the land speed records. You can go as fast as you want, nothing around you. Will the speed kill you if your car or your vehicle rolls over? Maybe. But the fact of actually traveling fast is not going to kill you. It's the consequences if something goes wrong that will kill you. And Michael, this is what I'm getting at. When you start posting a sign limit, when you see a speed limit somewhere, they say that's your safe speed. Okay, I can agree with that. But that's based on a general consensus that everybody is at just that level of knowledge and ability. Takes no consideration for anything else. So, yep, let's just say post a speed limit. If you're driving a vehicle and you come up behind a slower vehicle that is doing 90 kilometers an hour, so 10 kilometers below the posted speed limit, in order for you to overtake, you must pull out without breaking the law and sit on 100 kilometers an hour to go past the vehicle that's doing 90 kilometers an hour. So how long from when you pull out to when you can actually safely pull back in do you have to sit on the wrong side of the road? If the vehicle in front's slower, it's less. But if it's nearly matched 100, but not quite, that means you've got to put yourself and the oncoming traffic in danger for a lot longer period. Yep, I say if you look at roads where lots and lots of people drive, the amount of information that you're getting from external the vehicle, say road signs, lighting, digital displays, lines on the road, posts with reflectors and all that, it's overwhelming. You go out west, the roads out there, they don't have painted lines. There's zero electrical interference, like zero electrical input. There's no flashing signs. There's no lights. It's just you looking ahead, reading, interpreting the road, and driving to the conditions that you are seeing. I think too much input makes things a lot more difficult. Yeah. I'd ask a question. What is the fastest speed you've all traveled? But we shouldn't do that in a public forum. Correct. And I say, unfortunately, a lot of people, when they realise they're going slower than the posted speed limit, they will then speed up. But it's always as you'll go to overtake them that they do it. So you've got to sit out there longer. My trick is I come up behind a slow vehicle. I then start backing back, and I'll give myself a good bit of length. And I'll look ahead. They always, one of my old favourite sayings from a movie was, I only drive as fast as I can see. As soon as I can see an opportunity where I'm going to be able to get past, I will start speeding up from a distance. So when I actually get up behind that slow vehicle, I pull out, go past, and I come back in. Then I can go back to the posted speed limit. I don't sit out there too long. I don't like sitting out on the other side of the road. That's just asking for trouble. That's my driving technique. It's worked so far. So fingers crossed it keeps working. Nothing. I can't stand people that drive right up behind other people. It's just asking for trouble. Ed, if you're still there, mate, how's all the earth tremors going over there? I've been watching all the live earthquake stuff. Mount Rainier is getting a little bit exciting. There's another one that I'm keeping an eye on that's sort of, I think everyone's looking past. I'll think of the name of it here in a second. There's a lot of movement going on over you in your area. Stay safe, all yous. Hey, I'll say these prophecies. Again, you can only take out what you want to take out of it. There's a certain vagueness to looking at these things that lead you to a lot of questions and not a lot of answers. But yeah, I always like to look back at past events and see how they would match up with future events. That's how I look at it. Yeah. Again, one of the Nostradamus's seeings or visions he had was empty cities. Well, again, if you look back in time, we've got cities that were just left, and we don't have explanations why. Mayans, Incas, the Egyptians, Aztecs, the Hopis, and then I'm trying to think of the other ones. But yeah, if you look back, they were big civilizations, and those civilizations sort of vanished into time. Maybe it's just that pattern that's just about to happen again. Maybe all the cities we look at and know today in a couple of thousand years' time might be looked at the same way as what we're looking at the old ones now, if that makes sense. I don't know. I'm just looking for patterns, things that sort of generally happen time after time after time again. Yeah, it was a good stuff up by me with that Wimmendale conglomerate video, because I say I made the video to actually talk about what I consider to be tsunami deposits left on the side of the mountain range there. But I didn't mention it. I just called it conglomerates, Wimmendale conglomerates. I fixed it up this morning. Right, I'm going to get another drink. No, you don't want one. A few clouds starting to build. I reckon we'll get some good storms next couple of weeks. There was something else I was going to ask Ed too. Something about one of the gold areas there. Something else that's a good watch is the documentaries on how the Badlands were formed. I found that really interesting. So yeah. Long story short, yeah, Ben. So yeah, hence why I used to change a lot of the old names to newer names, just to save confusion. Yeah, it's like Ophir. You type in Ophir and look at different locations that are called Ophir. There's lots of them. And so even the meaning of Ophir, when you type that in to actually see what you can find on that, that's interesting. How many reedy creeks are there in Australia? See if you can find a number for me. I'll be getting a calculator because I won't be able to add them all up. Yeah, so those conglomerates at Wimmendale, I'm just going to go back to that because I say I find it interesting. It took me a long time to piece together all those bits of information to actually work out that this all looks like tsunami material. So when you actually look at the mountain range itself, for me, when I look at what's there, I believe that the tsunami wave that would have come up and formed all that, it came from the west heading eastward. So it actually crashed on the coastline that was on the western side. And it ran up over all those materials. And as it dragged them back, it rolled all the material back with it. And that's all your conglomerates there you see sticking up at an angle. Below that, you've got all your really fine sediments. You've got your fossilized sand ripples. You've got your tube corals. And then when you go a little bit further, you start finding these conglomerates of coral. Now, the coral was all smashed. It's all higgledy-piggledy. There's no layering in it. And in amongst all the smashed coral, there's all these round water-worn stones. So I reckon that as that was running out, all those rocks were actually breaking on coral, crushing it up, pulled it out, and that's where those crushed sediments all gathered there at lime kilns. So you can see that the layer where there are no, there's no defined corals, there's no sedimentary stuff with the limestone there, but below it, it's just all conglomerate. It's all smashed up. Yeah, it's been, well, the Earth's rotation speeds up and slows down. It changes. It changes with axis tilt and where it actually orbits during the year cycle. It will actually speed up and slow down. The moon has an effect on it. It slows it down, spins it up. But yeah, it is said that some outer space impacts like meteorites and asteroids that hit the Earth will actually do the same thing. It will either speed it up or slow it down depending on the direction it came in and struck the Earth. I reckon that was pretty basic. Like you think about, well, that makes sense. If something's spinning and you interact with it and hit it from a certain direction, will either speed it up more or slow it down. AI, I'm not a fan, hey, really not a fan. You look at all these videos that people are posting about, oh, look at this, and they show a bridge collapsing. A big concrete bridge collapses. It collapses down into trees and shrubs down on the ground beside the bridge. But the thing is, none of the trees and shrubs move. There's no wind movement. There's no physics in the actual video. The people that are standing on the bridge, as the bridge tilts, the people tilt with it. They stay standing parallel to the way the bridge tilts. Eight Reedy Creeks. Keep looking, Ben. I reckon I could put a 0 on the end of that and just say New South Wales alone. And if you want to go one step further, go back in time and look at the creeks that had different names than what they have today. So the deeper you go into researching a topic, the more you will find. It's so important to actually not just take the first bits of information you get and base all your actions on those bits of information. The more information you get, the better your outcome will be. If you're doing research, the more accurate, the more precise that research will narrow down and tell you what you're looking for. Three kangaroo creeks. Oh, here's a question for you. Just answer true or false. Do we have kangaroos that just live in trees? Yeah, they come down on the ground every now and then, but where do they spend most of their time? On the ground or in trees? Answer that one. That's a good one. I can hear people frantically typing, looking for the answer. Who was the first Englishman to record information on Australia? There's another good one. I'll give you a hint. Arr, me mateys. Arr, arr. He's got a name. He's in all the history books. No, Ben, you won't find creeks that have changed names in the internet. That's where reading books. That's where it'll tell you. Are possums a type of kangaroo? No. Good try though. I like that line of thought. Maybe they are. They're definitely a marsupial. Here's how I do it. If I was going to look that up, I'd just go tree-dwelling kangaroos and see what comes up. Jim Crow Creek had its name changed. Yep. Yeah, so it's an interesting thing when you start going into, and I say you start using government information. So go into Department of Lands, go into Crown Lands, and you go into what used to be called Six Maps. It's now called a different name. Explorer rings a bell. And you come down. I do like riding bikes, Ben, but only when it's warm enough now. My body doesn't like cold. I pick my days very carefully. Photography, love photography. What other hobbies? And I know my friend Chris will be probably watching this live feed at some stage. So I'm just going to say, Chris Kelly Dog knows just how much I love jigsaw puzzles. Chris always tells me, do you look at the picture on the box before you tip it out and throw it away? The short answer to that is no. I don't even look at the picture on the pieces of the puzzle. I turn the puzzle pieces over and I look at the back. I look at the shape of the puzzle. I look at the texture of the back of the puzzle and try to figure it out from there. And as I'm putting it together and I get to the end, I can flip it over and go, that's what the picture is. That's how I do a jigsaw puzzle. Took up remote control planes. You need to go to a second-hand shop in the main street of Parks. They have remote control, like second-hand remote controlled fighter planes that have probably 8 to 10 foot wingspan. There's an RC fighter jet. There's heaps, and most of them are all petrol motors. They're not electric. Yeah, it's a great one. I'll find the name of it, and I'll actually post it in the comments in the chat here later on, so you can actually go and have a look for yourself. Worth it. Got some good stuff in there. That's another hobby I do. I love looking at history, looking back at what people did, where they were doing it, why they were doing it, what they found, what happened, what events happened to them, bushfires, disease, all those kinds of things. I find history very, very fascinating. I've got a real love affair with looking at history. It provides so much information that is important to carry forward. Again, no point having knowledge if you don't pass it on. It's wasted. Yeah, isn't it funny how like the old names of creeks, when you actually start Googling them or whatever search engine you use, don't line up with the names in books. And so that's where you've got to be really, drill down into your information, drill down into your research, and you can actually find the date that they changed it. And it was normally when they, opened up new land for settlement. So in the history of Australia, there were what they call parcels of land that the government opened up for people to settle into, start a farm, to do cropping, whatever. But at the same time, there were parcels of land. Well, there were not even parcels. There was just open land that people decided to take up residence in. And a lot of the conflict with the Aboriginals came from these people that were settling in lands that the government said, we haven't set it up yet. And this is where a lot of the conflict came from. Those lands that weren't actually opened up, people started giving names to creeks, rivers, streams, gullies. And then when the government went, right, well, we need to actually open this up. There's already people that are living there. We've already got records that exist of the things that they were, interacting with, like streams and stuff like that. And they didn't change it. They left it the way it was because it was familiar to the people there. It was familiar to the government there back then, I should say. And then when it changes and they opened up that parcel of land and actually started surveying blocks and boundaries and things like that, the names of creeks and gullies and that didn't change, but it has later on. And that's where it gets confusing. That's where people get, oh, Bogan Creek. What's special about Bogan Creek? By the way, yes, there is a species of kangaroo here in Australia that do live in trees. What's special about Bogan Creek? It's the site of where a meteor struck the Earth. That's probably about the most notable thing I can think about Bogan Creek. Maybe there's people down in Victoria searching for where that meteor hit the ground, find fragments. And I said to my mate Chris, that's watching again, be lots of money tied up with it, like people going, if I can find a bit, how much that might be worth. So I coined the term meteor, money. And I said, say that 5 times fast. Meteor, money. It's a tongue twister. Are you addicted to tobacco? Yep, absolutely. I'm also addicted to enjoying myself and not letting others dictate what I should and shouldn't do. And that's why I always laugh at the labels on these things. Going back to what Ben was saying, yep, I'm a lover of exploring local history. For example, the town I grew up in was the first place in Australia to find shellite fuel for the lamps in Melbourne. I found the old shellite pits. All right, I like that. That's a good topic to talk about. So before we had fossil fuels, I'm going back. When did we start with fossil fuels? We started burning coal, 1500s. Someone can look that up. Whale oil was the primo oil. It was a wonder oil. You could do anything with whale oil. It was used in so many different things. Perfumes, right up to lighting lighthouses. It burnt super bright. It burnt really clean. They used whale oil to lubricate machinery. It had properties that no other oils could actually give. It was a universal oil. And if you actually go into rural areas around New South Wales, you can still find the advertisement on the sides of buildings where they talk about whale oil. And again, you start talking about shale mines here in Australia and shale mining. The industry of candle making and paraffin oils and paraffin waxes, that all stem from commencement of shale oils. So we started looking into that. And you go into the later periods where during the war, Australia was having a lot of trouble obtaining petroleum to actually run vehicles and run machinery. And they started looking and investing money, the government started looking and investing money into producing petroleum products from shale. And they did that at Nunes. And they also did it at a larger and more complex scale at Glen Davis. And yet they were able to produce a good quality petroleum fuel that went on to sale here in New South Wales and probably up Queensland, down Victoria. The only stipulation with that fuel is that any bowsers that actually had that fuel in it, they must put a sticker on it to say where that fuel came from. So again, if you go on and do a search on the internet and look at old fuel bowser labels and logos, look up Nunes and look up Glen Davis and see what images you get. And you'll actually see these old images they used to put on the fuel bowsers that came from those two locations. So Nunes was the first one. It's really, like, if you've got the ability to go there and have a look, go. But spend a minimum of 3 days there, because it's going to take you a long time to walk around and look at everything that's there. But Nunes had a rail system that run from in that valley all the way back up over the plateau, which joined the rail line that went from Lithgow through to Sydney. And they used to put all the liquid petroleum that they manufactured at Nunes on rail cars and sent it down to Sydney. And then when they started what's the name of the other one? Glen Davis. Rather than put the rail infrastructure over into there, all they did is they just built a pipeline that ran up the escarpment, across the top, and back down to Nunes, and they continued to use the storage facility and the rail facility that was already set up. Good history. Go and spend some time looking there. Right. Yeah, I'm addicted to tobacco, absolutely. My research, Aboriginal history, my grandfather looked. Yeah. I say this is where doing research and looking back in time is actually good. It's a funny thing. What we perceive to be the right thing to do today, in a period in the future, we look back and go, that was definitely not the right thing to do today. And I say, you look back to learn from mistakes made in the past so you don't make them in the future. We're forgetting to do that now. We look back, but we don't see. We don't see what happened. We don't look at the events that led up to it. We don't look at the consequences that those events had on future generations. We look at the here and now and make decisions that are not correct. We should not be doing a lot of the things we're doing. Out of our control. Yeah, I'll say, not my circus, not my monkeys, but it affects us all. What else is news? I'm still trying to figure out a use for discarded glass bottles. Still trying to get them banned. Not having much luck. It's a silly thing. We should not be using single-use glass containers. Every part of the process to make those things is just wrong. We don't need to do it. It's just a waste of time, waste of energy, waste of resources. All right, Ben, you have a good day, bud. Keep smiling. Now, if someone was to ask me, all right, if you don't want to have glass, Andrew, what do you want to have? I'd say, can we please have steel cans again? Can we go back to having steel drinking containers like the old beer cans that used to have the interlocking join in the side? Go back to them. If you chuck them in the bush, they disintegrate. They go back to nothing. If you want to speed the process up, chuck it in your campfire. That's the best thing you can do with a metal can. If you want it to vanish real quick, throw it in the fire. The fire will probably break it down about 3/4 of the way. Once you walk away, a little bit of acidic rain, because all rain is acidic, and it'll break down the last of it really quick. So a tin can that you hold in your hand today, throw it in a nice red hot campfire, 12 months' time, if nobody touches it, it'll virtually be gone. Unlike glass, which will last for thousands of years. Unlike aluminium, which will last for hundreds of years. Yeah, so that's my solution. Don't use glass, use steel cans. A lot easier. It takes a lot less resources to make a steel can than it does to make a glass bottle. Much higher temperatures to melt glass. Many more resources needed. You got to mine the silica. It's one of the biggest mineral resources that are in short demand at the moment is sand. It sounds strange, but it's true. It's one of the most sought after minerals, and the one that we're lacking and we're running out of the fastest. All right, I'm going to have to go shortly. Well, I hope wherever you are, you're having a good day. Yeah. Oh, again, Michael, like ceramics. What natural mineral is not affected by acidic rain? And I say we can link this back to gold prospecting, because this is exactly how we get shedding off quartz reefs that are exposed to the Earth's surface. Quartz, and I say particularly pure quartz, like crystallized quartz, it's nearly impervious to acid. Acid doesn't break it down. It's only, wedging. So if you get a little fault line in the quartz that allows moisture into it, thermodynamics. If it freezes, it expands. If it gets hot, it expands. Hot, cold, hot, cold, hot, cold, and that's how it starts breaking it up. But rain itself, like chemical erosion, does not affect quartz. It's only temperature, really. And I say, again, if you want to talk fracturing quartz, if you put a quartz seam in the ground, that seam's getting squashed, it's getting opened, it's getting squashed, it's getting open, it's getting pulled, it's getting slid against each other, it causes all the cracks. So when it gets to the top, it starts breaking down pretty quick. Yeah, silica, it's one of the most abundant minerals on the crust of the Earth. I did mention this before, but I'll just mention it again. Uranium is 500 times more common on the crust of the Earth than what gold is. So that means every time you go out gold prospecting, you've got 500% more chance of finding uranium than you do gold. Again, that depends on where you are looking for gold. All right, I'm going to go. Enjoy your day. Been a good chat. Glad we can catch up. Wherever you are, get out there and get into it. And until next time, stay good, be happy. Bye.